Okay, cool. It's pretty excited to see that so many people are interested in hearing something about Angular. To quickly introduce ourselves, my name is Roman, and I usually do a lot of web stuff. I'm in projects where it comes to developing web applications, and my focus there lies in front-end architecture, responsive web design, usability, UX, and all that sorts of stuff.
Yeah, my name is Sebastian. I'm currently focused on IoT solutions and work for some years with Angular since I think version 1.0, and yeah, we're both working at InnoQ.
Yeah, that's a company based in Germany, so prepare for some funny German accents. It is located between Düsseldorf and Cologne. And we usually have a lot of customers who have some pain points with Angular or regret their decision that they used it for whatever web application we talk about. So one disclaimer for those of you who do not know about this acronym FTW. When you look it up at something like Urban Dictionary, it says for the win. So our talk will be about, is it always the best solution for my application? It's more of a higher level talk. And we want to question a lot of things, if it's always a good idea to use it. And if you scroll a little down on Urban Dictionary, you might find something like that. We do not mean this. So is it for the win?
We're not in a biker gang.
No biking gangs involved. So let's start by imagining you're a kick-ass developer. That shouldn't be so hard to imagine. And you're in a team and you have to develop some sort of web application. And that sort of web application could be a brand new one in a sort of greenfield project where you have a lot of open possibilities. You have the freedom to choose a lot of stuff, or it could be a web application that stands next to others, some legacy stuff, some really nasty things which you do not want to touch at all because they're like crumbling, falling together and whatever. And of course you're interested in Angular because it's here for quite a while and you're asking yourself, should I use it? Is it a good idea to like build my web application with this? And you might find some reasons. Could be that there is someone who's saying, man, this is the way you do web these days. This is the only way, and you should do it like this. Or your inner engineering curve wants to like check certain features out. You read about like two-way binding, awesome. I always wanted to try things out with this. So I'm like picking Angular for this reason. Or maybe management said you have to do it in Angular, sorry, for whatever reasons, you don't know. Or it might be something like Google built that, it must be awesome, they are successful, right? We would want to be successful as well. So yeah, if you actually pick maybe one of these reasons to be like the reason for you choosing Angular, what could possibly be wrong, right? Because like everything is awesome, we're like totally rock this. Well, as you maybe know, chances are you totally blow it because you like don't make it in time. You totally underestimated like the complexity behind things. Your team can't take on all that. And yeah, if you do not make it time, you most likely do not make it in budget. And chances are that management gets really upset if you do not make it in budget because they have like wasted a lot of money in you, and probably they have to waste more money for experts that are fixing like stuff behind you and all that sorts. So that's not cool. We all know what happens then, like projects going to be like this. Sorry. Project's over, next one. So let's fix this. That's like not the things we want to achieve with this.
Yes, and to fix this, you have some decisions to make before, and maybe you have to choose a web framework which fits your need, and you have some environmental things to consider. You have an organization, maybe you're a freelancer, or you have a big company that will matter, as that will give you an environment where to work in. You have users which will use it. You have some sort of productivity to achieve, and some tools to work your users with, and frameworks, and so on. And you have an architecture which is a basement for your application. Let's start with the organization. What's your business organization? Who's responsible for what? What's your environment? You have some constraints you always keep in mind. You have the time. That's one cornerstone of it, and you have the budget. That's very normal. Then you have the technology. You have some constraints maybe for the hardware where it runs, or some white or blacklists technology. For example, one project was with the JVM technology. You can use JRuby. It doesn't matter because it runs on the JVM. And maybe some processes for operations, communication flows, and so on. And you have a team, composition of some guys with skills, and they may have front-end or back-end affinity, and to get directly on the AngularJS example, it may be not such a good idea to put some back-end developers on a high-level JavaScript stack. And you have to respect the power of decision. Who is responsible and empowered to make technology decisions? You have to communicate a lot with him or her if you're not it yourself. And always know your business model. You are not doing this for fun. It's the most important criteria to prioritize your tasks on. And you have to come back to Angular. You have to think about, does Angular support, or does a single-page application support your business model? Because maybe later on some guys have to pay for a service you're building, and you have to support that. That's all. Everything has to concentrate on this business model, and it's okay. And it's very important that the developer knows it, because he's a part of that hopefully success story to fulfill this. A business model is not importantly something like we have to earn money yesterday. It can be, let's build a to-do app, the best app forever. We have 1 year for that. Then we look for 1 year if it's successful, and then we do something with that. It's also a business model, and you have to concentrate on this. One of the best things to support this business model is to support your users.
And to start with, like thinking about the users, the first thing that comes in mind: who are my users actually? Do I know them? Do I have like some sort of assumptions I make? Because like chances are you do not know what your users actually look like. What are their pains? What are their needs? What do I have to make them like? What is the best way I can help him? Because he's like the key for my business to like earn money, for example. When I'm thinking about like building a product, I might have like some competition going on, and that user might expect some sort of like snappy UI feedback. For example, if I'm building like an app like that, and this is my competition, so it's like really not a good idea to like build something like in this direction without like all this fancy stuff going on. So maybe my product should even like support offline usage. We just heard a great talk about in and offline elements. So this stuff is like really important. If your app doesn't like support offline usage, you might be lost. Maybe your business model won't be fulfilled that good. And another really important thing about users is their context, actually. So are they like interacting with your application at home, for example, or are they like sitting at a desk and working with that? Or are they like traveling, maybe in a helicopter, who knows? And when I know these situations, I can like assume some more, like what kind of inputs does he use? Does he use like keyboard and mouse, or does he use touch? Or maybe he's even like controlling stuff with his voice because he's like not able to like do the other forms of input. Or you have to use like a nasty remote for your TV, for example. All these stuff are very important when you think about can Angular actually like deliver that sort of stuff, and most of it does, of course. When it comes to devices, a step further, of course, can it run on mobile, on tablets and phones, of course, or laptops, or desktop PCs, or TVs, or cars, or fridges, or watches, whatever. Of course, it's important that you support like all these screen resolutions with something like responsive web design. But also this implies that not all of these devices are like very powerful. Lower Android smartphones have like really poor performance in terms of like running all this JavaScript that you need to run a full Angular application. And if your users are actually like using almost only old Android phones, might be not that good of an idea. So when we have like set up our assumptions about the devices, what kind of connections do they usually have? What kind of quality is behind it? Are they, when they're flying in a helicopter, they're most likely like using some mobile communications, which could be really flaky. If they're at home, they maybe use like some Wi-Fi, or when I'm at work, I may be using Ethernet connections. So the less good the connection quality is, the more I have to think about, is it really a good idea to ship like big amounts of JavaScript over the internet to like get to the clients? So it might be too much to choke for him. So you have to think about that. Another important thing is, what is their actual user intent? They want to like achieve a certain problem. They want to solve a certain problem, and your application wants to help him with that. So how does he usually start interacting with your application? Is it like from a bookmark, because he already knows about your application, or is he kind of searching for like the latest Nike Air Max, whatever special shoes, and he's like going over Google, and then he goes like into your application immediately. If you have like more kind of these scenarios, you always have to keep in mind that every time he jumps forth and back, you have like a little bit of ramp up you have to do, because you have to like load all this JavaScript stuff. So how long do they actually stay? The longer they stay, the better for us, as in terms of like when we want to use Angular actually, because like the load time we need, and the time that needs to pass by before he sees actually anything is probably better, or is not that important if he's like just going through this phase once, like loading the application in whatever 2.5 seconds. And the longer he stays, the more this isn't a problem. If he's just like going in and out, then this might be a really big problem.
And it's measurable, no?
Yeah, of course.
On development, you should always do such things. That was a screenshot from the Chrome developer tools, and you can see how your page is building up, and where's your business model? Where does the user work on what time of the page?
If your business model is actually depending on really lots of users because you want them to pay for anything, whatever, then you should care for reach. And reach you can actually gain with compatibility, for starters. So the more browsers you support, the better. That is kind of a problem. Doesn't have to be a problem, but can be a problem if you have to support whatever, like Internet Explorer 8 or underneath it, because Angular does drop support for these kind of older browsers. This doesn't mean that like you have to care about these things, but if like a good amount of your users are actually using these things and actually buy stuff over it, then you might think about some other options. So another thing, oh yeah, and it gets worse on mobile, of course. We just like talked about old Android phones. It's like, yeah, it's not only like totally cutting off the feature support for older browsers, but also like maybe the browser can run your JavaScript application, but it suffers so much because it's not powerful enough. It's like no good at all. Another thing you can gain reach is like by robustness. And when we speak about web technologies, you usually have, because the medium is like very faulty, you usually have like in terms of HTML and CSS and JavaScript, some good support in terms of fault tolerance. So HTML is fault tolerant by itself, so you can like do programming errors, produce invalid markup, and the browser will fix stuff. It's like not that bad. Of course, you will sometimes have funny rendering issues, but you're pretty safe on that. When it comes to CSS, it's like pretty much the same, but you have to be more careful because when the browser, for example, doesn't support like CSS animations, and you're before the animation triggers, move something out of the viewport, and the browser does not support like moving that stuff back, then you're ending up with like some content that is hidden and not visible at all. But when it comes to JavaScript, it like flips actually, because the slightest mistake I make can lead to like a total blank page, which is like not cool. Of course not. We do not want that. But the likeliness for when I'm using single page applications is pretty high, because like all the client side rendering and stuff will lead to an empty page for if it's like really going to crash or whatever. So another big thing that you should think about when we're speaking about reach is accessibility, actually. And when you do think that accessibility is like not your problem, you might have a look at the number on the right. Because when you're going for lots of users, you might be surprised how much they spend. And it's like when it's not for moral or ethical reasons that you would like to make your site or application accessible, you should at least think about like their annual aggregate income. And it's easy to screw these things up because we can build like beautiful stuff now. For example, if you have like these super beautiful range sliders, you might be tempted to build these with like a div and another div and a div and a div, and then like attach some handlers and whatever, and then make them like really cool. But the point is that when you want to support accessibility, the best thing you could actually do is like use semantic markup. So instead of like throwing everything into divs, you might be better off with something like this and actually relying on real input and real input types that actually fits your problems. So when you're going for semantic markup, you're like halfway there. For all the parts where this doesn't apply, you can use something like Viaria. That's a standard that brings in another set of HTML attributes that you can attach to your elements, and that makes sure that screen readers or other assistive technologies can do something meaningful with your component or whatever. And in Angular, you have like the opportunity to use the ng-aria module, for example, that can help with that. It's like not the silver bullet for this, so just by throwing it in, it doesn't like solve all your problems, but you have to keep this in mind and maybe like do a little more. And overall, all these goals, all these things I could do to increase reach also include SEO reasons, of course. Because when the crawler is coming by and your site is like empty, like totally, because like content is going to be loaded sometimes, that is kind of a big deal if you're like living from this business model that someone comes over Google and like wants to actually do something on your page. So you can prevent this stuff by throwing in something in the head element like meta text for descriptions, or some micro formats for supporting Twitter or Facebook stuff that enables like easy linking and indexing your page. Or you could use something like a tool or a service that like pre-renders everything that your application actually puts out. So you could use this, but it's like all of these problems, all of these things you had to come up with, like when we were talking about reach, you wouldn't have in the first place if you decided to do some things like on the server. Because like server-side rendering is very good at some things. They're like stinky and old maybe, but for all of this stuff, it's perfect. You get most of the things for free. So you have to think about these things.
Yeah. Next point is productivity, developer convenience. Okay, Angular is very good at this. You have a very good documentation and tutorials, which makes the ramp-up phase very good, and you can quickly get to something you can show to others, rapid prototyping. Yeah, the docs are really good, and but I have to ask myself if I can handle my problems with the structure Angular gives me. The structure is there's a lot of structure which Angular gives you and where you have to work with, and maybe a structure won't fit into the Angular models, and you have to ask yourself too, how much complexity can I take, and how fast can I respond to problems? Because from the docs, it's like this. It's very the examples are very tiny and shiny and cool and very powerful. But at the end, you will have this stack of JavaScript. And how much complexity can you take? Can I respond to problems and bugs quickly? What is if one of these pipes has a hole, and what do I have to do to fix this? It's very complicated, and the debugging is completely on the front side. You have no clue what's from the backend side, what's going on the front end. You have tracing problems. You have to do this, and
that's especially problematic if you're not that familiar with like the web technology or JavaScript itself. If you're like maybe a team full of backend developers who say, "Awesome, Angular has like all these cool features," but like I do not know that much about JavaScript. When it comes to like these deeper problems or errors, it gets really nasty and cumbersome to like fix them and getting to know what's going on and stuff. So.
No. The good message is you have a very active community, and you can expect help from them. They are very active, and in the last years, the community was always very helpful. But I think if Angular 2 becomes more stable and is officially released and so on, you have the focus will move to that, and you have to still solve your Angular 1 problems if you want migrate to 2, but that's a very complex situation. The components and plugins you have are endless. You have so many things like Angular Translate, ng area, you mentioned it, and for everything, Bootstrap, jQuery UI, Google Material, and so on. So you can profit from that. The most common components have good support. You can always see how much contributors they have and rely on that. And one thing that gives that to you is that your rapid prototypes are very good, and I can validate the assumptions I made about my users. I can very easily give them some user interface and test what I expected from them, or what they should, how they should use it, and Yes, that supports my agile environment, my agile process, and you have faster time to market because you can say we have this set of features and we release that and add some features later on. Yes.
Yeah, that is. Can you skip one back? That is especially like very important if you have that product in mind when you have maybe a UX team or something that is like definitely want a quick feedback from the user if certain things work, because like maybe we want to use like this the select box there, or we want to use tabs, whatever works better for like for pursuing my business model. And the sooner I get this feedback back and can like change it inside my application, the better. So, some things to keep in mind too.
Yes, and the last one, the basement. We have the architecture we are building this on. You know that you have good control over your environment on the back end, but on the front end you have to build this. You have to pipe your errors, your console to the back end to see what errors occur on the front end. But you have no clue about how the render performance is and how much this reaches on that what the developer sees and what he develops. Some fluid user interfaces, will they appear on the client side too? We don't know if we don't measure this and pass this to the back end. For example, you have a wire transfer, that's one of the worst cases, and you want to send something money, and something go wrong, and you have a user which looks at the spinner, and he think maybe I have sent some money, but he cannot be sure. What should I do? I have to handle this case. If I don't handle this in my front end, nobody will handle this. And of course, the dependency management. This application here is a bit older, and I think the update of this won't be very easy. It will take some weeks, I think, to read all these dependencies. This is not the full list, but if I have read all the dependencies, will they match together? Will they work together? And sometimes happens a lot on the projects, and sometimes they don't respect the version numbering, and you have to test it. There's always a lot of dependencies, not on which I deliver to the front end, but also on the back end, on the developer tools, the developers which use the tools and libraries and so on. They must also be updated.
And this is especially cumbersome if you're like working with multiple teams and you have to set up yourself with others, and you have to decide, can we update like this commonly used tab component, whatever, to the newest versions? And then maybe some of them are saying, yeah, okay, why not? And some of them say, yeah, probably we shouldn't change these things right now. And then you have to think about like all these dependencies of these transient dependencies, which can get updated too. And in terms of stability, when it comes to like making a product which is like stable, like a released version of it, these things can get really nasty. So you have to keep in mind. Another thing you should have a heavy focus on is like, do I have to integrate with other stuff? We saw on the slide before, like this old building, are there some legacy services, or are there is there even an architecture or a application that actually consists of multiple applications? It's more like a system. So for example, like you have a really big web shop, and you have lots of users, and you decide to build multiple applications into one UI. For example, you build one application. There's one team that is actually building a search, and one is like responsible for building the shopping cart, and another one could be responsible for building the product catalog. And in these scenarios, I might be tempted to like decide I will do like the shopping cart in Angular because I like it, whatever. But I do have to think about how is like the rest of the teams like handling their stuff. Maybe the product catalog is a Play app or anything else that is like server-side rendered. How do I integrate with this? Especially when the user is like jumping between these, like putting stuff in the shopping cart and back. Is like really painful if you like having all this overhead to ramp up your application inside an application. So you have to think about, is it a good idea to do it like this? Or maybe you decide you do the whole shop as a single page application, and then like do tiny modules, and every team is like sitting on a module and developing it. Then you sure have like all these communication overhead. You have to like with settling on certain dependencies and stuff. When do we integrate? And yeah, these are definitely things you have to keep in mind, because is it okay to create a monolith in the first place? So when you decide to do this, actually, like having a single page application for the whole shop, for example, you have the time is pressing, you have a fast time to market. So you maybe to keep things easy, it's totally fine and valid to go for a monolithic application. But in the later end, when I like have to scale different parts individually, it's like pretty complex to untie this ball of rubber, especially if there are like 3 teams involved in this rubber ball, and they all want to like achieve their goals with their subparts of the system, and yeah, that's can get kind of a problem. So you have to account for that somehow and think about it.
Yeah, and one thing is the scalability is always something I handle in the back end, but where it's very easy, I can put more web servers, I put more services for this, more service for the services, and so on, and load balancers. But do I have to expect some scalability problems in the front end? And yes, of course, you can have those too. It's very easy because if you think of the shopping example, you can have a testing environment with 100 items on one shopping page, which displays the catalog. But on the servers, on the production side later on, you have thousands of products, and you run in problems like the 2000 watcher problems. You run into the problem, which makes your page very slow, and you run into really problems to solve this. One thing is the one-way binding Angular introduced. And Angular 2 will solve some of that problems too, with another architecture approach. Okay, to wrap these things up, to get a successful project, you have to know your business, and you have to ask the right questions. You have to compare your options. What should I do to achieve my goals?
And these options, by the way, these options, by the way, can not only be like just Angular or Ember or any other single page application. You also might compare it to like some server side stuff, because we saw a lot of situations where it's like it's probably not the best idea to use it like this, and then you have to compare it with something like Rails or Play or Spring MVC or whatever. And you should, when you're asking like all these questions, maybe make a list or something like that, or a little Excel sheet or whatever, and then compare like these things. And sometimes you have to make trade-offs, and you have to prioritize, because some things are like more important than other things. Sometimes maybe all this UI stuff that comes with it are like are really, really, really important to you because you want to compete with others. And sometimes maybe security or stability reasons are like your main concern. So, yeah.
So, and you have to decide as a team because they have to use this technology you will introduce, and you should let them take part of this decision. Yeah. So Angular is not a silver bullet. Maybe a solution for you, but of course not always that's what you want.
Yeah, we totally speeded things up. Sorry.
Yeah.
I hope you're not too mad that we're like 20 minutes earlier. So you can either like have questions, put them in the app, or holler us at Twitter, or come by. We can go have a coffee outside and discuss maybe your problems or your experiences with Angular. And yeah, thank you very much.